Hey everyone, in this video I wanted to provide kind of a how to study for the PL-900 exam, the Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals. As always, if this is useful, a like, subscribe, comment and share is appreciated, and hit that bell icon. Now I did a number of other study crams for the fundamentals and people said do one for the Power Platform. Now as hopefully you know, I'm not really a Power Platform person, but I wanted to try and help as best I could. So I actually went through, studied, and took the exam, and I did pass the first time. So I'm going to kind of walk through what I did to pass the exam. Now, the first thing is it is a fundamentals exam, so you don't need to know huge amounts of detail. You don't need to be an expert in any of this at all. The key point is to understand what are the key components of Power Platform, how do they interact, and what are really their key features? Where would I use them in my business? Now, the first step is you can get a free single person learning. So there's a developer plan, and I've got the links in the description below. But if you actually head over, you can go ahead and sign up for this Power Apps developer plan. So you can build and test Power Apps for free. So it's going to give you kind of this little dev environment. I can't collaborate with others. It's just for really my learning. But you can go ahead and sign up for this. That's really going to help you to just understand what some of the options are. You can go and have a play around, and I think that will help in your overall learning. So that is kind of the first thing I would go and sign up for that. Now it is fundamentals. So when I think about what is the exam, it was 60 minutes long, so it's not a long exam, and I got 45 questions. Now all of those questions are either single choice, hey, pick from this list, what would let me do this? Or maybe it's select multiple things that apply. Maybe there's a set of things and I drag and drop it onto, maybe there's multiple questions using that same list, which would I use for this? Or hey, I want to do this thing, kind of put them in a sequence. But that's all it is. They're very simple questions. There's no case studies, there's no hands-on labs. It's just kind of answer this either by choosing one thing, choosing multiple things, or drag and dropping things. So how would I do X? Oh, well, maybe that's a Power App. Maybe that's a Canvas app. Maybe that's a model-based app. Oh, that's a Power Automate. Maybe it's a schedule. So you're really just targeting how would I do certain things. Now, from a learning perspective, you don't actually, I think, require any real hands-on to pass the exam, but start off going to the PL-900 site. So if we jump over to the PL-900 site, we have the Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals. It talks about scheduling the exam. Pay attention to this skills measured. And what you really want to do is download the exam skills outline. And it's going to walk through what are the individual skills you actually need and what are you being tested on. So think about going through these and making sure you can actually understand, okay, well, what are these things? Do I know what these mean? And sometimes if it has changed, if you go down the bottom, you can see kind of a red line version that shows you what changed from the old version. And you'll see Common Data Service and you'll see Microsoft Dataverse. They are the same thing. So there's been some branding changes. They did some branding changes. Instead of using the word entity, they used the word table now. So there were some changes they kind of recently made. And you can see that right here. So you can see, hey, look, describe Microsoft Dataverse. And they've changed the word entities to table, fields to columns. So they've gone some more common language. So if you knew something before, you can kind of look at, hey, what has changed with this more recent version. So you can really, I would make sure you go through that. Now the next thing, and this is what I did, I just went through the free learning path. So there's a Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals basically course. There's 12 modules you kind of go through. And I really think that will put you actually in a great position. So I would go through that, make sure you've gone through it, taken the time, and that is all I did. So I went through that, and again, I passed the exam the first time. So go through the skills outline, go through that online module, and I think you'll be in good stead. Now, what I'm going to do now is just talk through, I think, some key items, just as going to be a last-minute cram before you're about to take the exam, that I think would help. Firstly, why do we have any of this at all? I can think about, as an organization, I have various types of data. Now, that data could be kind of on premises, it could be in databases, it could be kind of in files, maybe like XLS documents. It could be data in the cloud. So I have all these different kind of sources of data. And ultimately what I want to do is people want to get value and insight from that data. And the whole point of Power Platform is to democratize the ability to interact with the data. In the past, we could think about, well, we had to be experts. I had to be a developer, I had to be a DBA, to be able to interact and get value from the data. The point of Power Platform is that anyone, a regular user, a C-level executive, anyone can actually go and create ways to interact with the data and get value from it. So if we think about kind of the whole term of Power Platform, a big deal around Power Platform is you'll hear the term no or low code. I do not have to be this expert developer. We want to be able to bring these tools so that anyone in the business can actually go and interact and get value from it. So the idea is citizen developers, and I'm not a developer. Citizen developers, anyone in your company can go and actually get value from this. Now, when I think about what is it actually made up from, there are 4 key components. So I want to kind of go through those 4 key components and talk about what the true value of them is. Now, the first one a lot of people are going to interact with is actually Power Apps. So we have Power Apps. And these I can kind of think about as really this user-facing app. So I'm creating this user-facing app. Again, this is low or no code, but it's a custom app I'm creating to meet some business need. Now, it's going to take advantage of different types of data. I can kind of think about, I had those data sources. And one of the things we're going to have is connectors. And we're going to talk more about these. So we have these kind of connectors that can go and talk to data in the cloud, other clouds. And there's even kind of data gateways to go and talk to maybe data I have on premises. And then there's also this idea of this native kind of store, which is that Dataverse. Now that was, and you might still hear this talked as, kind of the Common Data Service, or CDS. And commonly there'll be things that essentially enable us to get data, and I can bring it into the Common Data Service through some of the other things we're actually going to talk about. So we have these user-facing apps we're actually going to create. Now this is all browser-based. So I'm doing all of this from my browser. There is not a client application I installed. I'm actually going to go to the make.powerapps.com to actually leverage this. This is all built around, we kind of write that in, make.powerapps.com. Now these are actually just linked from the Office portal. So if I go to the Office portal, we can kind of go, and I'll show this later on, this all apps, and I can easily get to my Power Apps. I can get to the other things I'm going to talk about as well. So we're going to create an application to interact with the data. That's the whole point of what we're doing with these Power Apps. Now there are different types of Power App. I can think about, well, we'll tell you there's three types. We have a canvas application. Now, as the name kind of suggests, with a canvas application, I'm presented with a canvas that I can drop controls onto. So I'm controlling that user interface. I'm constructing what I want it to look like. Now, because of that, I design it either with a phone interface in mind or a tablet interface, which is really the same as a PC. So we have this wider kind of landscape orientation type app, or phone, a portrait type orientation, and how we kind of lay out that data. Now I have to pick this. That's going to drive the design layout, and I cannot change it. So I have to think about what is my audience for the app I'm going to create when I use a Canvas app. I pick phone or tablet, and then I can't convert it really after that. So make sure I pick kind of the right one. So know the goal platform. Now for my Canvas app, I can actually bring in data from these connectors. So I can get data for my Canvas app from a huge number of connectors. I think they say 275 in the course, but I think there's about 300 now. Or kind of data from the Dataverse. So the whole point of this is, hey, I'm going to construct this interface. So if we jump over for a second. Now, once again, if I was just in Office, if you click kind of the sort of the app launcher at the top, from up here in these kind of three dots. So if I click that, we can go to all apps, and we'll see down here, Power Apps. So I can click that, and it will take me over to make.powerapps.com, which is where I am right now. And you'll see it's giving me the choice of make your own app, Canvas app from blank, model-driven app from blank, or portal from blank. It's also giving me this option to start from data. So let's say, for example, I had a SharePoint list, which I actually do. So I created a SharePoint list, and this is kind of a document on how you can create a SharePoint list, and I can put that kind of in the link below. But I'll actually show you my SharePoint list data. Let's jump over here. Actually, I know where I can find it easier. So I can actually see I created a SharePoint team site, and I created a SharePoint list on that. And all I created on this was super simple. It's just a couple of video pieces of data. So it's literally just two of my Ask Me Anything sessions. And you can see I've got a 50,000 AMA, 60,000 AMA, and I have a link to a thumbnail as a URL, which is not showing on this chart, subscribers, publish date, and a link to a YouTube video. Now you can see from here, I can actually select Integrate, Power Apps, Create an App. So I have that just natively in SharePoint right here to go and create an app. And that's what I did. So if you do this, it will go and automatically create a 3-page application for you, which is what I have down here. So all I did was select that option, you give it a name, and it created me this Power App. So it's linking to the SharePoint list, and it gives me these 3 screens. So the first one is going to kind of be this summary view, a gallery. So there's different types of components we can actually have in our Power App. So a gallery is one where it's displaying kind of the multiple items that we have from our data source. This is taking a long time for some reason. It's having a bit of a laugh. There we go. So it's loading it in, and kind of this is the application. And you can kind of see, hey, it's actually going and getting the images that were from the link, and I have kind of the data from there. Now, what I actually want to do on this is, rather than just run the application, let's actually go back over. We go back to our Power Apps, actually over here. And what I want to do is actually edit it. So we'll select the Edit button. And I can actually here see the editing environment and some of the things I can actually do. And this was, again, all auto-generated. Now, instead of doing it from the SharePoint site, I could absolutely have just done exactly the same thing by selecting, hey, start from data, for example, SharePoint. And then I could actually say, well, what data am I actually leveraging? And it will actually go and load. So I can say, hey, you've got a SharePoint. So I can say, yeah, my recent site. I'm going to pick the list, and then it would go and create the item. So I can create it in multiple different ways. But here is my app. So we can see, what did it do for me? So it created 3 pages. It created a browse screen over here. It also created a detail screen and an edit screen. So it just automatically created this nice 3-page app. And it's composed of various elements. So you can see kind of, hey, it did a rectangle here, a search icon it added, a text box, and then we have really this browse gallery. So these are the items it's showing me. And you can see it has a data source, which is the YouTube AMA. I can edit the fields it's showing, but because it's a gallery, notice I have this layout on the right-hand side. So I have this layout option. And I can change that. So I have all these different options. So I could say, well, just show me the title and subtitle. Done. I could say, hey, I want the image, title, and subtitle. So now it's going creating that. So it's just basing, and I could customize that even further if I wanted to. If I actually go and dive in, you can see, hey, all the different elements, and I could add elements, remove elements. It has all these different parts to it. I could add additional buttons. So if you go and look at insert, for example, well, I can add labels here at the top, buttons, text, inputs, gallery, data tables, forms, media, charts, icon, mixed reality, all these different types of things. So input, hey, I could add pen input. Hey, I want them to sign something. A radio box. From the gallery, hey, different types of galleries to show things. I could add a form. I could add media. I could add a camera so it actually use my kind of device. So I could take the camera and add that onto it. And I could say, yeah, allow the camera. And now I've got a little camera part. So this is me waving over here, but I added 2 by mistake. But I can kind of remove those. But you can drag and drop those various elements. I could add icons. So there were some very rich, powerful controls. You can see like barcode scanners, microphones, charts. I could add things here, a Power BI tile. So we're going to talk about other components. But the whole point of all of this is I'm designing it and creating. I'm dragging and dropping, arranging different components I want onto my screen. Then we have a detail screen, and I can even have an edit screen. Now I can launch this. I can click this little play button, hit F5 up here at the top, and see it in action. So it started from where I was, but let's just close that. Didn't do that quite right. Let's close a second. Go back to my browse. Let's try that again. So here's my app. I could go in and look. Oh, there's the detail. There are actions I could actually go and use this to modify the data. I'll go into this one. Okay, great. I could go and click and launch the video. So all of this was just done automatically for me. I didn't have to do anything. So you can think about, hey, there's some source of data. This could be an XLS spreadsheet. There are many different things I can do with this. But the whole point of what this Power App Canvas app is doing is I say, hey, I want to create an application that's easy for users to leverage. So I'm designing the layout. I pick where the data's coming from. Go and play with this. Again, this is an easy one. It created for me from the data. I could just as easily kind of start and create a blank one. If you create blank, then it's going to ask me, hey, is this for a tablet, IPC, or a phone? I have to pick that, and then I can't change it. I'll give it a name. I'll have a blank canvas, and then I just start creating the various things. So that's that kind of canvas-based application. Now the next one I have over here, you'll see this model-driven app. So if on the Canvas app, the point was, hey, I got this canvas and I had to design the layout. The model-driven is completely different. As the name suggests, with the model-driven, this is based on the Dataverse, not connectors. Now the Dataverse, we're going to talk about this, is really made up of tables. I have tables with rows and columns. Columns with a certain type of data, rows the different entries within there. There's a whole set of built-in ones, and I can add custom. Ideally, we try and use the ones that are there by default. So with a model-driven app, I'm really just focusing on relationships between data and kind of the forms that I want to expose. I don't worry about the layout. That's auto done for me. I just say, these are the things I want to kind of show. These are maybe the rules around how they interact. It does all of the work for me. I focus on the data entry. I'm using this because I want people to be able to enter data for this. I tell it what things I want to show. I create that model of the data, the model of the relationships between them, the business process, and then just build the app. Again, it's only created from data in the Dataverse. I can't on here go and use like an XLS spreadsheet. I'd have to bring the data into the Dataverse from that XLS spreadsheet first, or that SharePoint list, which I can absolutely do. So again, if we jump over and looked at this one, and so think of the difference here. So if you get questions like, hey, you want to be able to design an application where you pick the layout, well, it's going to be a Canvas app. If it's, hey, we want this basic auto formatting application that just focuses on forms for data in the Dataverse, well, hey, that's probably going to be a model-driven app. So I have a model-driven app, and literally all I do, I'm going to change my environment over to my little developer free one. So I'll do my classic app designer. And literally all I have to do here, go away, is I select what entities. Now the terminology has changed, but sometimes you're going to see the word entities, sometimes you'll see the word tables. An entity, remember, is a table. It's just the terminology has been changing between them. And the test might say entity, but realize entity equals table. That's kind of a key point in all of this. So this will open up this app designer. I don't know why this is all so slow today. And all I have to do is really define what are the various groupings of data and what forms I want to actually expose to the user, what the relationships are between them, and if also there's any kind of rules that has to be followed as part of completing this. Let's just wait for this to finish. There we go. So it got there in the end. So notice I could pick a different tile if I wanted to, but I'll just call this demo app 1. I can add descriptions. I could, if I wanted to, pick a certain icon over here, and we'll just click done. And it's a very simple experience what I'm doing here. I have to create a sitemap. So the sitemap, I click the little edit icon. Really, I have an area, I have a grouping. These are just labels I can give. So my area, for example, I don't know, I'm just going to say business 1 or 2, whatever the name is, as a certain grouping of the various tables I'm going to have under there. So maybe, I don't know, it's customers, whatever it could be. What you're really caring about is the sub area. So notice I have these components on the right hand side. I have areas, groups, and sub areas. So a sub area, well, this is actually something. For example, my sub area here, I have a particular entity. Now, if I go down, I don't know why it keeps changing to this. This is doing something weird to me today. But I have to select a certain thing. I really don't know why this is doing that. What is it doing today? Let's give it a name for a second. So I'll change it. I don't know why it's misbehaving as I'm trying to demo this thing. So I'm over here. I want to change this from the drop down. Now it's working. Okay, I might say this is accounts. Notice it just changes that text for me. And this obviously type is an entity. So this is from the accounts table. Now what is that? If I just jump over to Power Apps for a second, if I go to data, so this is the Dataverse, it's showing me the tables, which again, remember, is another term for entity. There's all these built-in tables. And out of those, as we'll kind of see quickly, there's like account, activities, address, appointments, attachments, contacts, emails. There's things like phone calls I might be having, tasks. So I can kind of have all of these different things. And these are made up of various columns. So if I looked at account, well, we can see, hey, from the columns we have for accounts within the Dataverse, account names, addresses, all of these different columns I could actually go and add. Then I could define relationships between those various tables. Now what I might say at this point is, okay, so under customers, I want to add a new sub area. So I can drag this, if it would let me, let's just do add sub area. So I've got a new sub area. Once again, I might add another element that is related to what I'm trying to achieve. So I might just say tasks, something like that. And again, this type is an entity. At this point, so this is the sitemap designer, and I could add additional areas, and these are all going to be generated for me as an interface for people to actually go and enter data into. So I could save my changes and save my sitemap, and I could publish that. It's publishing the sitemap, and I'm just going to save and close. So now I have, you can see this entity view, I have accounts and tasks. There's a whole bunch of built-in forms, built-in views, dashboards. I can edit that. So I can say, well, the only ones I want, so notice there's the main forms, there's an account for interactive experiences, there's quick view forms. I could turn some of these on and off as I wanted to. Same for tasks. There's different types of forms available. Now I'd have to unselect all, and then I could kind of control which ones are available. Same for all of the views. So I can go through and customize. What things do I want to be available? I could add business process flows to control sequence of steps when they actually complete this. But at this point, if I just hit save without really doing anything and just publish this, what you'll see is I just added the tables from the Dataverse. I've not added rules, I've not really changed anything. If I just hit play, this is now the user interface. So through this model-driven application, all I did was say the tables I want, and normally you would define relationships and some business rules about actually completing this. But now I'll actually have this interface automatically generated for me that I can just use. I don't have to worry about anything. So now as the user of this model-driven Power App, which is what we're dealing with right now, that's all I focused on, is what data. So I could go and look at the accounts, for example. Once this actually loads, everyone must be using Power Apps right now. It's being super slow. But I could go and look at my accounts, and it will have default forms associated with that. And from that, I could then go and add. So I've got no data available, okay? But notice I could do new. If I do new, it's giving me this layout. It's automatically generating it based on the form factor that I'm in. If I was on a phone, I would get a different type of view. And I could go and complete the data. Or I could go and look at the tasks. And again, I don't have any, but I could go and add a new task. And then it will go and add it into the Dataverse, that common data store. So that's kind of a model-driven application. I'm not focused on the layout. I'm really just focusing on what data do I want to be able to be input through this application. And then it goes and really does all of the work for me. I'm not worrying really about anything else. So that's the model-driven. And then the final one, and so really both of these are focused from an audience perspective as kind of internal users. That's who I'm really focusing for these. Then we have this portal-based application. Now the portal one is more about external. I want to be able to go and expose this. And once again, it's this web-based experience, and it's just dragging and dropping components that I want to make available. Now I can create the portal from a blank-based application. So it's just blank. Let's jump over for a second. So if we go back again, I'm going to close that down. And we go to our Power Apps. Let's just go home. Notice I have the portal from blank over here. Got my option. If I had things like Dynamics 365, there are other apps. There's portals like Community, Customer, Self-Service, Employee Self-Service, Partner Portals, Customer Portals for the Dynamics 365 supply chain management. But the whole point is they're designed to be public-facing. I create these portals. I'm going to switch over to my dev environment a little again. Now they take a little while to provision. So I created this sample portal over here. It's telling me, look, it's going to expire in a period of time. And I didn't put anything on that portal. So you have to actually drag and drop things onto it. So what I would actually want to do is go into here, select edit. And then just like before, I'm going to go and drag things really onto there and create my now more public facing application I want to be available. So for this, I can be anonymous or it can be an authenticated website. So I do actually get that choice, but these are all going super slow. But hey, this was the sample. I didn't put anything on it. So you can see it's just doing this default, hey, welcome to Power Apps Portals. But I need to actually go and edit this and create things onto it. So you can see, hey, this was my default layout. But obviously that's probably not what I want. I can go and add components. So column selections, 2 columns, text, images, iframes, forms, all of these different things are available to this. Now, an important thing when I actually think about these portals is, once again, in terms of the data is coming from the Dataverse. I am not using connectors to actually go and get data from this. I can use AI for these applications like the Canvas app. A big one I could actually use is, for example, these AI integrations. And so I could use things like forms processing, find text in something, find objects, text classification, is it a positive or negative sentiment? And these all use Azure services, and we'll actually talk about that as a component a little bit later on that can be common to a whole bunch of these things. So I want to be conscious of time. So the next one we actually have, so that was Power Apps. So I can think about the next component is actually Power Automate. And Power Automate, this is all about automating repetitive process. So I think about, hey, I'm going to automate some process. Something that, hey, I constantly need to do. I need to collect and act on data, for example. So I can think about, hey, all of those kind of, this Dataverse, I can interact with different types of connectors to actually perform certain things. It used to be called PowerFlow, was kind of the old name for this. But anything I need to do that I can break down into a series of steps, I can do with Power Apps. Now there are these huge numbers of different connectors that I can actually leverage for this. So once again, from a data perspective, I'm using these kind of in those directions. And I have these event-driven flows. So I can think about kind of event-driven flows. If you've ever used logic apps in Azure, this is built on those logic apps. Now, when I have these event-driven flows, you'll see there are my flows. These are things that I'm using, I'm creating. And there are also team flows. So a team flow is just started off as a my flow, and I now have multiple owners. I added additional owners, so other people can now use it. So it's a flow I have shared. So this flow has to have a trigger. So this is something that's actually going to go and make this start. There's a whole bunch of different triggers. I can have, for example, time-based, a schedule. I could have something happened, an email received, an object created, maybe a user pushes a button. There's a whole bunch of these different types of things. The easiest way to actually know what those are is we can actually go and look at it. So if I just jump over to Power Automate, let's go. And now to get to that, I could be in my office again, and I do my All Apps, and I'll see Power Automate over here on the menu. Now I've already selected that, so that takes me over to this basically flow.microsoft.com. And we can see, hey look, there are templates. So I can start from a template to do all these various types of things. Or if I look at kind of create, and I do a new flow, you can see you build your own flow from blank. And I can see automated, instant, scheduled, desktop, and business process flow. So these 5 kind of flows available to me. So let's just talk about a little bit about really what these are. So when I think about those triggers, if I think the automated, so that automated type, that's some event. So that could be an email arrives, there's a tweet, someone's created a YouTube video, there's an object created. Some event is triggering that. Then we have instant. So instant is some manual interaction. A user pushes a button. So hey, I see some question about, hey, what would I use if I want to call a Power Automate if someone pushes a button in this report? Okay, I want that to instantly run based on some manual action. Okay, instant. Then there's scheduled. So this is at some predefined time, some interval. This is some recurring. So hey, I want to run a report at the end of every day. Oh, okay, well that's going to be scheduled. And then we have this UI flow. Now this UI flow is super interesting. Think about there's some user interface that doesn't have an API. I can't programmatically interact with it. What UI flow does is an application you run on your machine, and it's basically going to go and capture the clicks you do. So it's going to record you performing the action, and then it will allow it to go and do that in the future. So this is also known as robotic process automation. So it's going to record me clicking on buttons and filling things in, so then it can go and rerun that in the future. And then the last one we had, if we go and look, was this business process flow. So with a business process flow, that's all about, I want to make sure someone does something consistently. I want too many S's in there. Business. I want to make sure it's done in a consistent way. So this is a consistent way of doing something. So hey, I want users to do this thing. I want to make sure there's no variance in how they're doing it. They always fill in these things. They follow these rules. So I would use a business process flow. If I see something about, hey, make sure users do this the same way, they don't vary, we check what they do. That's a business process flow. So that's why we have these 5 different types of kind of triggers and the things we're actually going to do. And then they call actions. There's a whole bunch of different actions I can perform. I can call Power Automate. They could send emails. They can call artificial intelligence. I could start an approval flow. So one of the things I can actually do, if we look at the samples, it's kind of interesting. So again, there are all these different templates available, but you'll see these desktop flows, business process flows. Hey, notify a team when a forms response is submitted, follow up on a message, create a task from a message, schedule a meeting, start an approval in Teams. And there's actually a whole section around this. If I go home in my Power Automate, if I have approvals, notice there's a whole thing about approval requests. So within here, there's a whole set of things I can actually do around, hey, I need something to actually go and approve. As you can see, it talks about, hey, look, approval requests. I can actually go and do that. And the templates are organized. So there's actually approval examples that I could use as a template where I want those to actually be leveraged. And notice all the different services we can actually go and hook into. But this is all a web-based layout. Let's see if I've got any flows in here already. So I don't have any. You could go and create one, save a message to OneNote. And what it's basically going to do is I have to give details about this. And it will actually then go and on the canvas, so I'm going to have to go and select an item. It's going to give me these series of boxes that I can just drag and drop. I can have logic between them to actually describe how this is actually going to work. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go and create all these different things. But that's what this is going to do. It's a nice web-based experience, drag and drop the different types of connectors I want to do different types of actions and really complete that entire process. So that's what this is going to be about. Hey, I want to perform something. There's a whole bunch of templates that I can leverage. Super simple to actually go and use. Again, I'm selecting this template, so it wants, hey, what notebook are you going to go and add this thing to, from what teams? I'm going to have to give a whole bunch of details about this that I really don't want to do right now. But that's what that would have done. Drag and drop the things, and it will automate all of that process for me. Okay, great. So we've got kind of applications that I can have users interacting with. We've got ways to do repetitive processes automatically. So we have Power Apps, we have Power Automate. The next big component is kind of Power BI. So this is all around business intelligence. So I have this idea that I have this business analytics. I want to actually go and get information about my environment. And this is all about generating reports and dashboards. So a report is obviously detailed information that based on, again, remember that common data service over there, I can feed into that. This is kind of all built on top of this. I have all these connectors I can go and hook into and really surface this. Now, the way we do this and actually leverage it, again, this is about getting insight. I might have KPIs, key performance indicators that I want to be able to get into it. There are a massive number of connectors. So if we actually go and look quickly, we can kind of see that there's this Power Query, ways to actually go and interact. And it shows me the Power BI data sets, Power BI data flows, all of the different things that I can actually go and get data from. So lots and lots and lots and lots of all these ticks. This is all for kind of the Power BI. Huge numbers of places I can actually go and get data from. Now, the way it's actually constructed is really there's 3 main components to this. So there's kind of the Power BI desktop application. So this is the really, really rich authoring experience. I can do very complicated types of queries, very rich analysis within there. Then there's kind of a cloud service. This has a lighter authoring experience. I can't do the same level of kind of rich interactions, but it's very good to collaborate with other people and surface things, have those reports running. And then there's kind of a mobile application, which is really aimed at just consuming the data. If we go and look at the Microsoft site, it talks about kind of the parts of Power BI, and it goes through, hey, look, yeah, the desktop application to author. I can then surface and show and collaborate with others via the Power BI service, and also just consume them on the mobile application. Talks about there's some other components as well. And again, I'll have the link in the description below. You should kind of go and read just a little bit about the common kind of flows we're going to see. There are comparisons between the desktop and the Power BI service. So it talks about, hey, look, many data sources, transforming, shaping, modeling, measures, more advanced things. They can both do reports, visualization, security, bookmarks, etc. Power BI service has some sources, but it has these nice rich dashboards, and sharing is a huge one. Data flow creation, gateway connections, maybe to go and connect to things on premises, for example. So we have these different elements that we can leverage. So it's good to go and read through that, have a good idea of just what the key components are. Again, this is a fundamentals. You're not getting kind of advanced questions on these things, but have a basic idea of where these various components actually play. There's a whole bunch of templates available, but there's a whole relationship between these things. So if I think about Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI, well, a key part of this is from Power Apps, for example, I can actually call Power Automate. So I can go and leverage that from there. Power BI can call, because remember, what does Power Automate do? Some repetitive process. So I might have something in the Power BI report, hey, I want to trigger something. I can add that in within my Power BI. Power Apps, I might have a button I add that goes and calls it. I want it to go and maybe refresh some data into the Dataverse. Hey, I can go and do that. I really should have drawn those boxes. Think of the Dataverse, and the connectors really should have been under there. My planning wasn't the best when I drew this picture. Additionally, in my Power App, Power BI can have tiles. So one of the things I can actually do is I can add a tile from my Power BI and have it show in my Power application. And from an application, I can actually go and trigger to go and show a Power BI. So there's all these rich interactions between the different elements. It's not just some standalone thing. So there is another component. So we kind of think of four. So the next one we have is actually these Power Virtual Agents. And you can really think about this as a chatbot. So hey, I want to create something to enable people to talk and maybe ask queries from something. Well, that's going to be a Power Virtual Agent. And this is kind of licensed, and you kind of pay for this based on how many you have. And it's really constructed of, hey, I have a topic. So I can think about a topic is a trigger. There's some trigger phrase that's going to help lead some particular element excuse me, of the conversation. This is using natural language processing. So it's not that I have to get the exact phrase correct. If it's something similar to the phrase I use for my trigger, that's still actually going to use. So I don't have to match the exact words. Then I have entities. This is not the same as entities or tables in kind of the Dataverse. This is actually an entity of something. And this is helping me understand the intent. of kind of what the user is trying to do. And then we have actions we can perform. So I can actually go and call Power Automate to actually go and do something. Maybe, hey, I need to go and look something up. They've entered some question. Hey, when is my order arriving? Oh, okay, well, it can go and trigger a Power Automate that goes and talks to the Dataverse, gets the result and passes it back. And then what we have is we basically publish this. Now we can publish this to a huge number of places. So I could publish it to Teams, so I can interact from Teams. I can go and chat to this thing. I can integrate with things like Slack. I can integrate with things like Facebook. And again, go and look at these and you can see all the different places I can actually interact with. Now it's built around a chat session. So a session is 100 turns or 60 minutes, whichever happens first. So that is one session. It doesn't mean if I go past 100, the user gets dropped. It then becomes a second session. And this really all aligns with billing. You pay based on the sessions. And so just be aware those things are in place for how I actually enable and pay for the service. If we actually go and look at the pricing quickly, if we look at the Power Virtual Agents pricing, you can see, hey, look, there's $1,000 for 2,000 sessions. There's also sessions add-on for additional, and you can try it free, for example, but realize there's a pricing element, and that's where that kind of session comes in. And it's in small print here, 60 minutes or 100 turns. So that's what is considered as a session. Or obviously if the user's question is answered, then that's the end of the session as well. So those would terminate those particular things. And I can see it from Power Apps. So if I just go back to my main Power Apps portal, leave, you can see we have chatbots over here. If we do create, I can say, hey, a new chatbot. And you can see it's kind of showing me, hey, look, I create the various elements. There's a whole video. Go and watch it, get an idea. Again, this goes through in the MS Learn module, talks about these. But hey, I can start with a basic conversational bot. I'd actually be in that environment. But I don't have any licensing for this, so I'm not even sure this would let me do anything. I think you can start a free trial if you just want to play. You can trigger the free trial, so you can go and learn and have a little play around. You're basically going to add the topics, entities, create links, logic flows, and then you will be kind of off and away. But I'm not going to wait for that. But you can go and play. Again, Learn module goes through all of that. Now on all of these things, so they're like the 4 key components. So hopefully you understand what they're doing. Hey, create an app that I want users to be able to interact with, data entry, interacting, viewing data. Hey, do something automatically, rich analytics, querying. Hey, the experiences I can actually go and chat and allow users to interact, query, etc. Now, the Dataverse and these connectors are kind of common across all of them. Now, there's also an AI builder. So there is this common kind of AI builder component as well. The AI builder component is what's based around that kind of forms processing, object detection, prediction. So that's kind of a big one when I think about, hey, I need to try and work out what's going to happen based on past events. Well, that's prediction. There's text classifications. Is it positive or negative? And we'll see that once again over here. So this was my kind of, hey, start my free trial for my Power Virtual Agents. But back in my Power Apps, my AI Builder, if I go to build, I'll be able to see the different types of things available to me. Now, I don't have to be a kind of data scientist to create these. There's a whole bunch of models built in, which is the point. But I can see, hey, look, forms processing, grab text from something. So that's kind of just built in, available. Detect objects and count things in an image. Prediction, hey, help me understand what's going to happen based on past events. Category classifications. And they've got these samples available to me to help me get started even quicker. So sentiment analysis. Well, sentiment analysis, that's going to be based on that text classification. Oh, receipt processing. Okay, so I'm going to go and look and extract the text from things. Language detection, key phrase extraction, text translation. So I have all of these different things available that I can leverage as part of my solution. So these are kind of big deals that I can leverage in the other components I have. So that's one of those common things that all of these can leverage. But then we really have this kind of Dataverse, and that Dataverse is key to a lot of the things we're actually doing. Now, I might have multiple Dataverses. These are known as environments. So all of this, and you saw me switch environments, all of these instances of things is within a certain environment. Now, I might have multiple environments under my tenant. So I have my Azure AD tenant, and then I can have one or more environments. That environment typically will have a Dataverse, but depending on what you're doing, it may not have to have a Dataverse. But it's 1 or 0 Dataverses. And that Dataverse is really constructed of tables, used to be called entities, that are made up of kind of the columns, i.e. the types of data that we actually have, and then we have rows. Now they did change the terminology so that there were kind of changes. I'll talk about that in a second. But this is the key kind of local storage. Now the benefit of bringing data into the Dataverse is I now don't have to worry about the users leveraging my apps or my Automate having permissions to these datas. I'm bringing it into the Dataverse via connectors, so then this is just common. It has its own kind of permissions model in there. I don't have to worry about the users being able to go and get back to the backend data sources. And of course, there's basic data in the Dataverse, but I can also do rich types of columns within my Dataverse. So I could have business logic calculating new fields of data that are stored in the Dataverse that can then be easily consumed by the applications. So the person writing the app doesn't have to try and do those calculations. I can just add it as a type of data just available in the Dataverse. So that's kind of a big deal in terms of being able to interact with those citizen developers, just our business users, can now easily go and get access to that data. So the whole point, this is a standardized database model. It does have row and column level granularity. Remember, this is made up of tables. I can kind of think within here we have a table, and it's made up of kind of the columns going downwards and rows kind of going that way. So I have the ability to be very granular based on Azure AD who can access what types of data. It's built on the common data model, which means there's traditional and standardized schema, i.e. what tables we have and the attributes of those. And we saw that earlier. So remember when we actually was in here in my Power App and I look at my data, if we look at these tables, there's a whole bunch just built in. So these are all built off of the common data model. So really any kind of application that's built off of the common data model will be able to easily interact. Where possible, use the built-in tables and use the built-in columns. If it doesn't match exactly what you want, you can add additional ones. But a better way to handle that is you can rename the display name. So I don't actually have to rename the internal name for that. But see this display name, you can actually change things about these. You can actually go in and notice the display name, I can change that. I can't change the internal, but that doesn't matter. I can actually change. So best practice is try and keep those. I can rename them. I can add additional columns. But I can't remove columns from this standard. And again, I did mention there were terminology changes. So this is a particular table. This used to be called an entity. We now have columns, which used to be called fields. And we have records we have rows that used to be called records. So those are kind of the new terminology. And again, we can have complex tables that have server-side business logic, workflows, plugins, that can then be more easily consumed by various apps and reports. I can create relationships between different tables. This is going to be based on, you can see here, some kind of primary key that enables us to have a link between the different tables. I can have relationships that are one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. And once again, the benefit here is, yes, I can add all these other custom types of data, but because it's in the cloud, I don't have to worry about the applications actually having access to the back-end data. I can have business rules built on this to actually make sure I have the right types of values, I'm entering the right data, to make sure I don't get kind of inconsistent data within my Dataverse. And then we have connectors, connecting to apps, to data, even devices. They can be tabular data, so it's some kind of structured table format that it's actually reading from. I data from SQL Server, from an Excel spreadsheet. I can both read and modify where it's supported by the backend resource. And then I can have function-based data. So this is used to interact and getting maybe a data structure back. Maybe it's an event, maybe it's an update of permissions. I don't have to import into the Dataverse. You saw this. Some things will just interact with the connectors directly. Some things want to interact with the Dataverse, but those Canvas apps, I can just go and directly talk to my SharePoint or my SQL database, etc. I don't have to bring it in. Now, out of these connectors, there are really two types. There's standard and premium. And if we go and look at the reference, this kind of lists through what of a standard connector, and it tells us where they can be used. Azure Power Automate, Power Apps, and the same for the premium connectors. So this is kind of the list of the connectors that are kind of premium. And again, you can go and look at all these, and the list of the standard. So standard are things like Outlook and YouTube, Teams, Slack, Twitter. Premium are things like, hey, SQL Server, Azure Data Lake, Cosmos DB, Dynamics 365. And it really goes through, hey, look, where you can use all of these different types of things. I can create custom connectors as well through APIs. They can talk to on-premises data if I have a data gateway. So we kind of drew this idea. So I can have a data gateway, because often I won't have just a direct access. So what I would do is I'd have a component here that facilitates the outbound connection, so I can then talk to that and actually go and get the data. So that's really it. That was the quick summary I actually wanted to do around it. I hope that's useful. Again, the key point is just understand what the bits do. Go through the MS Learn. Take the time to go through it. Sign up for that developer account. Have a little play around. Create a Power App, a Canvas app. See what you can do. Quickly go and create a SharePoint list, which is what I did. And then see how easy it is to create that 3-page Power App. Go and create a Power Automate. You can see kind of the tiles on the screen just to get an idea. But the key thing to realize is, hey, Power App, some kind of interaction. Canvas, hey, I'm designing the layout. I drag and drop the components. I can have rich components like a camera and take pictures. It could then go and call a Power Automate. Power Automate, hey, I want to do something automatically. Different types of those. Remember, model driven, I just define the types of relationships and it creates the layout for me. Portal, hey, I want to present some data. Power Automate, remember, different types of triggers. Automated, something happens, hey, an email received, a tweet. Instant, manually triggered, hey, I push a button, hey, I'll use an instant trigger. Scheduled, I want to run a report every day, week, month. Great. Hey, I need to perform something in a user interface and have it then be able to repeat it automatically. Well, that's a UI flow, a robotic process automation. I need to make sure people follow a consistent way. I need to keep consistency as people do X. Hey, that's going to be a business process flow. Then we have various types of actions. Power BI to actually go and interact, create dashboards and reports based on our data from the Dataverse. and it has its own sets of connectors it supports. Power Virtual Agents when I want to chat bot. And again, it's made up of topics, entities, and then actions. And a guy can publish to many different types of place to actually use those. These can all use the AI kind of builder. So either those forms processing, object detection, prediction, what's going to happen based on something in the past, sentiment analysis, language processing, etc. We have all these different types of connectors to go and talk to data. And the Dataverse is that native, really common data service built on the common data model that can be used by all of these things. I can have standard sets of data, or I can actually generate new types of data server side that can then be easily consumed by the apps. The whole point of all of this, no to low code, citizen developers, everyone can kind of use this. I, as a business person, hey, I could create an app that the rest of my company could then use. So that's the point. Read through the Word document, make sure you understand all the items, go and read through the Microsoft Docs, go through the Learn module. Take your time on the test. Again, remember, everyone fails things sometimes if you don't pass it the first time. Pay attention to where you are weaker and go back and redouble your efforts to learn those things, and you'll pass it the next time. So good luck. I hope that was useful, and take care.